Everyone, it's Epic Unrolled, and in this video, I'm going to give you guys some really good, kind of a toolbox of tips you can use when making your TCGs. So this is all going to be about coming up with good card composition and tying that into your inspirations. So number one tip is to, instead of listening to a playlist of songs, listen to one specific album. That will allow you to constantly be in that flow where it's not just a bunch of different songs interrupting each other. So you get that good grasp of the theme. I really recommend Radiohead or Pink Floyd because those always make me generate really good ideas. I was listening to The King of Limbs the other day by Radiohead, and I was just annotating the lyrics. Like, it's really good to have some sort of side piece of paper whenever you're making cards. If you hear a lyric or just anything that triggers an idea, write it down. And then even if you come back to it a week later, it can still inspire a whole new set of cards. Like this one. This is just such an untraditional idea. It's just a bunch of candles making a pilgrimage to this fire pit where they're gonna melt. Like, I would not have thought about that just off the top of my head. You usually have to have something to spark that imagination. You can even use this for card abilities. If you like some sort of theme in the music, you can write that down and that might inspire a card idea. So kind of annotating and creating just a big sea of words around your art will really help inspire you. So that's tip number one. Listen to albums and kind of annotate them. Tip number two is to get any sketchbook or notebook and create a vault of card concepts. You don't know how many times I've been having TCG block and I don't know what card to make, where I just pull out my random sketchbook of just a bunch of card ideas and I just pick one from it. And it's so helpful. It's also really satisfying to finally check it off when you finally made that card concept. But what I like to do is, at least once or twice a week, I use about 1 hour to just take out my TCG concept planner and just create a bunch of different draft sketches for cards. I then can go back and remaster these. That also gives you an aim when you're making cards to make the old art better. And this is just sketch art, so of course it's going to be better no matter what you do. And that shows progress to your brain, and that's like really good for making cards or just remaking any of your cards in general. But definitely having some sort of TCG sketchbook of just card concepts is really fun. Or you could just like make a whole binder of card abilities, look at Magic the Gathering or other TCGs and just write down your favorite abilities and then somehow put them into your game. That's also really good on the more ability side. Next tip, which is tip number three, is to add something more to your background. Anyone can add a cactus, for example. If let's say you're making a desert type card, you're just making a desert snake. Everyone's going to add like sand and a cactus. But if you want to make yours even more unique, even more cool, try making your own style of a cactus. Try looking up things that are in a desert that aren't traditionally in like desert style arts and add those. For example, let's say there's this random rock formation that's really common, or this random anthill. Just add weird things to enhance your card concept. You can also tie in traditional things with nature. For example, anyone can make a woodland club, but I added like foliage and plants to enhance it, to make it really tie into the woodland part. So adding weird nature or just taking nature and adding your own style on it, like anyone can draw a wasp, but I made this wasp look really different and really unique. So take what's there, but add your own twist and go further into it. Add stuff that no one's ever added before, like from two traditional artworks. Another fun thing that I always like to do is just make a bunch of these index cards of just the most random card concepts I can think of and putting them in a hat or a box. And then whenever I need an idea, I just pick one and I make that card and I add a bunch to it. So that's my sole focus for the day, or I guess the hour, depending on how long it takes you to make a card. So just having that kind of a prompt or a foundation for what you're working on is really helpful because it overcomes that first barrier of thinking of a card. So that can help. Another good thing is called mood drafting. It's where you just take 3 random trading cards from any game, Magic the Gathering, any HTCG, and kind of taking those 3 and letting that inspire your one card you're working on. That's another quick tip. It's just a quick one, not much to say about that. The next one is making cards based on feeling. So I was watching this movie called At Eternity's Gate. It's a movie about Van Gogh, and there's a scene where he was looking out at a landscape and he said, "I see nothing but eternity." That just kind of filled me with this really amazing sense, and so I made a card about that. And these are some of my favorite cards to make because they're pure emotion. There's nothing, generic or anything about it. It's just that feeling. So making cards based on feeling basically ignoring everything else, like stereotypes and everything, is just really fun, and it makes some of your best cards. Next tip is to embrace randomness. Randomness. These are really fun cards to make. This one's just actually called Untitled because it doesn't make any sense. But the reason these are so fun is because there's nothing to compare it to. You know, like when you make a snake card, you try to make it your very best and you kind of stress over it. You try to make it so detailed, you put all your effort in it. But when you have a random card concept, there's nothing to compare it to. So you can just have fun and let the ideas flow. You have like no one else, you're not comparing this, whatever this is, to someone else's thing. You can just make it your own. So these are some of your most unique cards because they come directly from you. There's no source inspiring it. So just make random cards, and these are really fun to play with or collect because like when someone looks at this, they're like, what is that? It kind of makes them think. And art collectors like art that makes them think, makes them, there's more to the art. There's not just the character. There's something deeper that they can think of. Maybe there's a story within this card. I'm not going to tell you what the story of this card is because I want you guys to figure that out because I think that's kind of the fun part of art. Again, another example of just embracing randomness. I was just listening to a lyric. The lyric said trick of the light, or it's just a trick of the light. So I just made this card. Started drawing this dude that's made of light and added these cool things in the background. So, you know, randomness can inspire randomness. The next tip is to have a sandbox TCG. I don't really see many creators have these, but I've had these for quite some time. It all started with, Dream Descent and my old TCGs. But I just started a new sandbox TCG with Seth G, where we're just making a TCG just for the experimentation part. We basically take random card ideas and test out new archetypes and mechanics, and just make a TCG that is never going to be sold. It's never really going to be shown besides, of course, this video. And whenever we are making our new TCG, we might think back, oh, what are some cards I really liked from that experimentation sandbox TCG? Even if they're just sketch cards, like playtest cards, you can still like remake those cards or take those card concepts. So whenever you're in a dull moment and you don't know what to make, you can just think back to that toolbox TCG, think of the most fun characters or fun card concepts, most inspiring cards, and take those and remake them. That's what I do for Perpetual Cosmos. I take my favorite characters and card concepts. That's why people really like these cards, because they're some of the best ones from my old TCGs. So those are really fun things to do too. I can even make a video about toolbox TCGs in the future. They're just really fun sandbox things. Another thing to enhance your card making composition is to have some sort of theme or tool or tip you're testing. For example, maybe you're trying different composition. Most characters have like a central focus on the card. For this one, I kind of made him in the side of the card and have the planets kind of all random. This was a really fun composition to do because it wasn't traditional. So that was my focus for the card, and that made me put a lot of effort into it. Maybe you're trying a different color palette. Having some sort of aim before you make the card, like anything that I talked about in this video, having a foundation or something before you make the card really inspires good art. Because I see so many people who just are like making a card and they don't know what to do. They have nothing feeding their inspiration, their imagination, and they just make really generic cards and just fall back to that. So having just a plethora of all these tips will give you really good, spark for your creativity. And I guess the last one, which kind of connects to the desert one, is to take common concepts and make them your own. So in the Dream Descent, it's all about dreams and waking up your opponent as the main mechanic. So I made this card called Insomnia, and most people think of Insomnia as this dude who's struggling to sleep. So in order to kind of show that in my own way, I took just this random dude who's kind of breaking apart because, he's struggling from insomnia. And there's this like second brain or outside force that's like picking at him so he can't sleep. So that's kind of a cool interpretation of the idea of insomnia. So taking concepts and putting your own twist on them is another fun thing. So this was a bunch of really fun things you guys can do to enhance your card composition. I hope it helped. I hope you wrote down some bullet points of your favorite tips and in your sketchbook and start doing them. But that was this video. Maybe comment down below some tips, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye.